Good morning, everybody. My name's Ed Colson. I am privileged to be the faculty director of the Center for Real Estate at the Merage School of Business at the University of California, Irvine. Welcome to today's very exciting. I'm very excited about this program. As director of the Real Estate Center at the Merage School of Business, I am happy to report that the state of the center is strong. And that's as close as I'll get to politics this morning. It gives me great pleasure to thank the advisory board members and donors for their continued financial support and all the valuable contributions that they make to the center and to the business school in order that we can provide a comprehensive real estate program at UCI. The donors are all scrolling across the screen, so please take note of those. And we're very happy to welcome and acknowledge two new member companies and their representatives, Pacifica Hotels, Dale and Chris Marquis, and Rebecca and Randy Hall of Idea Hall. So thank you to them. I also want to thank NAIOP SoCal, the longtime donor and educational partner of the center, for organizing today's fantastic meeting. And we really appreciate all of their help in all the year through. The Paul Merage Business School is beginning a new kind of branding operation, which is being reflected in the curriculum and all the outreach programs that the various centers do. And so this tagline that we have, leadership for a digitally driven world, is a landmark kind of rebranding and restructuring of the curriculum and outreach programs for the university and its business school. As part of this effort, the school will begin to highlight how we study and incorporate developments of the digital age, such as robotics and automation, AI, digital analytics of large data sets, social media marketing, and all those related activities into the curriculum of the school and teaching activities. And today's program is the perfect example of how the real estate industry is leading in a digitally driven world. So we're going to earn lots of brownie points with the dean this morning by having this program. I'm really happy about that. Alumni are a big part of what we do at the school, and Brian Harmatz, where's Brian? So Brian Harmatz is leading our alumni group this year, and Brian wanted me to mention that the second annual roundtable with alumni and advisory board members will be held on February 22nd here at the Pacific Club. Encourage all alumni and advisory board members to attend this very valuable event. The first one was a rousing success, and so we have high hopes for the second version of this. And if you want more details, see Brian Harmatz over there. Finally, for those of you in the room, the Merage School's real estate curriculum is now available to you. So if you're I'm going to pause here for a second. One of the frustrations of being an academic in real estate is that so many of the students at any business school, and the Merage School in particular, don't know they're going to end up in the real estate world. And they realize after the fact that they should have taken a lot more real estate courses than they did when they were a student. So we're trying to fix that problem. And so we have a certificate in real estate for those of you who wish to sharpen up your real estate skills. Receive specialized training on real estate investment, valuation, and analysis. There's a flyer over at the desk available to you, and if you're interested in that program, you can contact Sharon Nakamura-Brown, who's to my left here. All these classes are offered in the evening, which makes it convenient for working professionals. And this admission is now open, and the application deadline for spring session is coming up, so be aware of that. Okay, well, let's get the meeting started. I'm very pleased to introduce the chair for this morning's program, Kurt Strassman.
Okay, my remarks are going to be pretty quick. Hey, everyone in the back, unless you like standing, there's a bunch of seats still up front, so please make your way up. There's, all in the front row and a couple midway, so we hope you're comfortable. As Ed said, These series, the breakfast series, it's a great series, and today's a perfect example. I think we had well over 250 people signed up for this, but it could not happen without our sponsors. They are sponsoring these events, and I just want to reemphasize and acknowledge them. And Taliban Vest Capital, Tom Sherlock, just raise your hand. Thank you very much, and you've been a long-term sponsor. Tom O'Rourke from Haskell and White for here. Raise your hand. Thank you very much. Selena Doka, I see you in front seat here with KPMG. Where's John Rockfield? I saw him working out in the gym this morning. I'm glad you made it. From Shannon Langston, and then Bill Halford with Bixby Land Company. But thank you very much. Also, my fellow committee members, I want to acknowledge Ryan Gallagher from HFF and Sean Roston. They're instrumental in helping and assisting the whole team, as well as Cynthia Fusco. Where's Cynthia? Cynthia provides all, in fact, she's really the person responsible for everything. She provides all the logistics, and that makes this happen, so thank you very much. I want to acknowledge the UCI students who are volunteering their time here, obviously the alumni group too, and then most importantly, all the board members who are, again, donating to make these things possible for our real estate program. On your seats, there's a little pamphlet here. It's got all the future dates and events coming up. In fact, our next breakfast series is March 21st, it says, but there's a couple other events in the meantime, so please take a look at that, and we encourage all of your involvement with that. And then secondly, these little cards here are for notes, and as the panel moves on, please, if you're writing down some questions, we're going to have some Q&A later on. The volunteers will pick these up, and you can ask questions directly to the panelists, so keep that in mind. And then if you have any questions on UCI Center for Real Estate, Sharon Nakamura Brown is right here. Please see Sharon, and if you'd like to participate or be a sponsor, Sharon is the point person for that. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. As Ed mentioned, this has been coordinated with NAIOP, and they've done a great job at putting together an outstanding panel. And Jim Camp, where's Jim? Jim, I'm going to invite you up. Jim is the president of NAIOP of Southern California. He's also the senior vice president and regional development director for Rockefeller Group, and he's going to introduce our moderator and get us started.
Thank you, Kurt. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a great morning. We have a great panel for you. I'm going to make this real short so we can get to the panel. NAIOP SoCal is proud to be the founding sponsor of the Center for Real Estate and was honored to play a key role in its launch in the early 2000s. Since 2009, we've continued our support through an annual NAIOP UCI CRE Fellowship, and whose recipients represent the best and future leaders and the continuing diversity of the commercial real estate industry. As of last year, we have partnered with the Center to award $67,500 in scholarships to deserving industry leadership candidates, helping to launch a number of very successful careers. This year's 9th recipient is Camille Compton-Chu, and we congratulate her on her achievement. Now let's get rolling with this program. The first thing I'd like to say is that if you don't like the program today, blame me, because I'm the one who put it together. It kind of started with when I met Chris Joyce on a conference call, and it kind of evolved from there. But our moderator today is John Condis, and that's who I'm here to introduce. He happens to be one of our lawyers at the Rockefeller Group, so I know him pretty well. And thank you, John, for doing this. Okay. John's a partner with the Orange County Office of Alamackins, with broad experience in obtaining and defending all types of land use and environmental permits. He's assisted numerous land developers, industrial, multifamily, retail, office, and home builders in obtaining entitlements from federal, state, regional, and local jurisdictions. He also leads a team of due diligence and entitlement professionals for these categories. Over the past 4 years, he's provided entitlement due diligence for projects totaling over 65 million square feet here in Southern California. To say the least, he's also an expert in one of us developers' favorite laws, CEQA, as I'm sure you all know. John's taught at USC Gould School of Law, USC's MBA, and Masters of Real Estate Development programs. He's a member of ULI. He's also a past president of NAIOP Inland Empire, our sister chapter here in Southern California. And he's a member of the executive committee for the USC Luss Center for Real Estate. Finally, I want you to know that he's a great lawyer, but he's very expensive. So if you hire him, make sure you have a lot of money. Please help me in welcoming our moderator today, John Condis.
Thanks, Jim. I really like that introduction to the last sentence. We lawyers do look at, alternate fee arrangements and fixed fees and everything, so just have to ask. Good morning, everyone. We appreciate you're all attending. The panel is entitled From Warehouse and Distribution to Logistics and E-Commerce. Are you ready for the evolution? I think it's going to be a little bit different panel than a lot of us are either have been participating in or are used to hearing. There's some topics that are a little bit beyond or different from what we usually hear, so I think you're going to enjoy it. Just a couple of regulatory trends you may want to consider yourself that I'm seeing, and the first one is amendments to the CEQA guidelines are now available for public comment. They're finally coming up with an amendment to the vehicle miles traveled, giving a methodology for how that should be done. Remember, the traffic studies are going to be shifted from congestion to vehicle miles traveled. So it's about 200 pages. I started glomming through them and I fell asleep. But anyways, you might want to consider looking at those. They're on the OPR website. Secondly, a lot of local governments are starting to turn the screws on logistics developers. For example, new impact fees, trying to impose road maintenance fees, and in extreme cases, even moratoria. So from an entitlement standpoint, if you're thinking of if you're starting an entitlement process, consider using vesting tentative maps or getting development agreements if you've got a big enough project to try to lock down the rules in place when you're starting. And then finally, CEQA challenges continue unabated. Indian tribes are becoming more active in influencing development because of AB 52. But these, frankly, to date have been more, I wouldn't call them speed bumps, but they certainly haven't stopped development. Clients, like Jim said, I hear it all the time, are having problems finding land. And that obviously heightens the need for efficiency and looking for warehouses in different locations. How can efficiency be achieved? There's an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal's morning email blast they send out involving logistics. If you don't get them, you might want to get them. They're really good. And it talked about this subject, and it said, some of the biggest breaks for industrial operations in the new tax rules may go to the robots. The revisions allowing companies to immediately deduct the entire cost of equipment purchases from their taxable income for the next 5 years already are hastening automation and modernizing in U.S. factories. The deduction gives manufacturers an incentive to buy machinery and boost productivity in a tight labor market. It also puts the tax law at the heart of a growing push towards automation in warehouses, where fast improving technology is bringing in robotics that can handle more tasks. So I think that is really typical of where we in the development space and owner space are focusing, is in automation and increasing efficiency. So with that overview, I think we've got a good range of panels. We're going to start from the developer's perspective, move on to a building perspective, and then on to a tenant. So our first panelist, everyone in Orange County knows me, been around and been successful for many years, is Brandy Bircher, the CEO of Bircher Development. This topic of e-commerce and where our warehouse industry is going has been a widely discussed topic nationally for the last 5 years, but I think this panel is really teed up to talk about something that we really haven't addressed much of. And it's about, are we ready for the evolution? And that evolution is clearly underway. My role is to talk about the observations about how this evolution is manifesting itself inside the development process and in the buildings themselves. So let's get started with the fact that over the last several decades, there have been only 5 categories of industrial subsectors. There's been incubator, business parks, manufacturing, R&D, and warehouse. But now the investors are starting to track fulfillment. According to ULI's 2018 Emerging Trends Report, investors and developers surveyed throughout the world have rated fulfillment as the #1 development and investment prospect, followed by warehouse, followed by senior housing, and then multifamily. So how did fulfillment and in warehousing really become #1 and #2 positions among investors? And I think the answer is the fact that the supply chain has been stressed in an unbelievable way. Some of the drivers of this stress have been, first of all, we had $139 a barrel
increase over 115 months between November of 1998 and June of 2008. Followed then by an $80 a barrel fall for 19 months between June 14 and January 16. Transportation costs being a critical part of the logistics supply chain. This is intolerable and really throws havoc into the supply chain manager's agenda. The railroads have been developing intermodal facilities throughout North America, giving an unprecedented access to scores of new inland ports. The air quality regulations in the metro areas have been discouraging the unnecessary vehicle movements, encouraging supply chain managers to locate closer to their customers. The ports have been taxing containers after 72 hours from debarkation. The ports are becoming closed to diesel trucks. The only CNG, LNG, and electric trucks now being allowed in the port of LA Long Beach. The ports are also restricting container pickups during regional peak traffic times. Driver shortages are becoming critically low due to the impacts of E-Verify policies to stem illegal workers. The Department of Transportation are limiting truck drivers to 11 consecutive hours, followed by mandatory rest periods. And finally, of course, e-commerce is threatening to supplant the traditional retailing model, and fulfillment is thriving. So what are the other drivers? Well, clearly we'd have to look at the Panama Canal. For the last several decades, our ports have been serviced by ships that have been in the 7,000 to 8,000 TEU, which is evidenced by the one on the far right there next to the Nimitz. The newer class ships have been 14,000 TEUs, but most recently entering our ports are ships in 20 to 22,000 TEU size. We call those the Super Post-Panamax class, and those ships are not able to transit through the newly widened canal. So as a result, we have container drops now being larger, and that's stressing the ports and the warehouse handling surges. The time to transit between China via the canal to New York City is 11 days longer than the land bridge, which is really stressing the ports on both coasts as well as the infrastructure of our rail in between. The other major driver has been a push to invest in the major ports across America. In just over a decade, the ports of LA and Long Beach have both made multi-billion-dollar investments in their infrastructure to accommodate an enormous surge in containers caused primarily by this growth in the capacity of these Super Post-Panamax ships. You can see there in the far right, in the lower left corner of that, you'll see a new island that was designed and developed. What you can't see are the billions spent on the transportation systems, especially rail, that go up the Alameda corridor that are part of our infrastructure, getting these containers out of the port and handle the larger drops. From a building design standpoint, we have seen a decade of radical change in the logistics sector. Pre-2008 global financial crisis, developers were really delivering the single-loaded facilities with the single 125-foot truck court. Post-GFC, we see now the majority of our fulfillment occupiers preferring a cross-dock with two 185-foot truck courts. So assuming our site configuration can accommodate it, this is the preferred design. Retail is also experiencing an unprecedented evolution. Meet the Go Small. This particular site is one of hundreds that we're seeing across the country. This one happens to be in Atlanta, photo taken in 2011. But of all the malls that existed in the year 2000, the experts are telling us that we will see half of them gone by the year 2025. And what's going to happen is that many of them, if the urban planners are wise, will take advantage of the location and consider keeping the traffic off the streets and putting in its place a logistics facility such as they did here in Atlanta off the I-85. For many occupiers, the supply chain challenges have been mitigated by relocating their customers, their buildings closer to the customers' rooftops and closer to the ports. This particular photo shows that is about a $400 increase between delivering a container to the Inland Empire East versus the submarket of the South Bay. And then, of course, John, there's the entitlement process. And as all of us know, challenges are commonplace, making a full environmental impact report even more attractive to the alternative mitigated negative declaration, which is a shorter version, but now being challenged to start back at zero and go through the EIR. Sponsors can no longer take for granted City Council support without providing cover with pro-project neighbors present at all public hearings. And now, of course, we have the growing number of insincere lawyers, kind word, by the way, those that challenge our environmental impact processes, claiming that we're insufficient, but they're just there to extort and obtain payoffs. They have no interest whatsoever in seeing a better mitigated project. And of course, we all know that the internet sales will continue to soar. In 2017, we had $409 billion of internet sales. That's going to grow by 56% to $638 billion in 5 years. We're going to see more site flexibility becoming more the norm. In this photo, you can see a cross-dock facility that provides the opportunity for e-com parking loads on the upper part, which is traditionally a truck court, but also allowing for the container storage at the bottom of the facility. And the 360-degree access provides for on-site security management as well as facilitating the divisibility into four tenants in the four corners of the building. Now, other than here in the U.S., multi-story buildings are the norm in the warehouse sector. Here's a photo of the GLP building in Japan. It's a 5-story, 1.3 million square footer. You've got Goodman's 24-story, 2.4 million square footer in Hong Kong, and Prologis' 6th floor, 2.1 million square foot building. And of course, we're all rooting for Prologis to be successful with their new project in Seattle, their 590,000 square foot 3-story, because with land prices where they're going, it isn't far away that we will see this become more the norm. And we wish them the best of luck. And this is really the first experiment here in the U.S. with the multi-story warehousing. So we're also starting to see the fulfillment users focusing on a higher cubic utilization. Here is a picture of a current example in the Inland Empire of a 43-foot clear warehouse to accommodate 4 operating floors, which will add nearly 2 million square feet to the 1 million square foot footprint. And of course, on the inside, there'll be thousands of employees that will ring the first bay around the perimeter of the building, while robotics and mechanical handling systems will dominate the interior. So not all occupiers are utilizing these buildings nearly as efficiently as they should. And that's why we're going to pass it on to Blake here to share how his company is assisting the occupiers in utilizing the insights.
So within the 4 walls of the distribution center and fulfillment center, traditional systems that we used to employ would take a much larger footprint. We didn't do a good job of really taking advantage of the vertical cube within a warehouse. These systems would be a lot bigger in size. They would have a lot of floor supports in the ground that would impede fork truck traffic within the facility. It really left a lot to be desired. Did a good job moving product from A to B, but just really didn't optimize the footprint that was available for us to work with. So what's new in today's centers? We're taking advantage of that vertical cube. We're employing what we call goods-to-person solutions within fulfillment centers. Now what these do, these take advantage of 2 of the primary wastes within a warehouse. That's extraneous touch points that it might take to fulfill an order. I want to touch it as few times as possible and get it out to the customer, get it there quickly to fulfill that promise of same day or next day delivery. These systems also deliver goods to the operator, hence their name. I don't have to have a warehouse associate walking throughout the warehouse floor with a cart, picking up orders, and that task alone of just travel is, by its mere virtue, not efficient. So having the operator focus on picking consistently allows the orders to get picked faster, gets it in the customer's hands quicker. This system here is called Perfect Pick. Picks about 4 times faster than conventional warehouse picking operations if an associate were to have to travel to the goods. So utilizes a robotic shuttle-based solution, and this technology here can go up to about 36 foot clear. Really takes advantage of that vertical cube. We also have some other systems in the market. This is a Norwegian-based piece of automation. It's called AutoStore. And this, if you want to think of it, is more or less an automated Rubik's Cube. Very tightly coupled storage within the warehouse. Everything is stacked within an aluminized grid in totes. Robots traverse the top of the system. They pick product out for a respective order wave and send those products to a picking station where an associate, again, does not have to travel to the goods. The goods are delivered to the associate for the picking process. So very efficient, a very, very dense solution to take advantage of that cube space within the warehouse. It also requires a very robust software package in order to make that operate effectively. But it's really one of the smallest footprint requirements on the market due to its density that it achieves. So what's new? What's coming down the pipeline? That's I'm asked that all the time. We're going to see an increasing need for robots within fulfillment centers. So utilizing these goods-to-person solutions in the future to robots. So you'll see goods-to-robot delivery for order fulfillment. So you'll have robots involved in the picking process. Really going to increase the order accuracy. You won't have the human error. You won't have workman's comp claims in a warehouse. You'll have high order accuracy. These robots don't have to take a lunch break. They don't have to sleep. They pick around the clock, and it continues to meet that demand for our clients to get orders out the door on a near 24/7 basis. So some building considerations for automation. What do we look for in our world within the 4 walls of a warehouse to implement this technology? Well, primarily, the biggest driver is going to be the clear height. I like to see at least 30 foot clear, on up to about 36 foot clear. There's also some traditional automated storage and retrieval systems, we call them ASRS, that can certainly go beyond that to 50 foot or greater. So those are more of an older conventional style. The newer technologies, typically within 32 to 36 foot clear, are really optimal for what we're looking for. There's also ceiling supported automation is increasingly popular. Again, freeing up that floor space, not having to impede fork truck travel aisles, and maximizing the available footprint for the client. Again, with that, having available capacity within the building design to hang that conveyor. Conveyor is going to have a dynamic load, so the weight of the conveyor itself, the weight of the product being conveyed, dealing with that inertia, and then also allocating space for example, solar and other items that may be needed on the roof. Another item that I look for that's very important is concrete flatness tolerances. Some of these technologies, especially the AutoStore that I just showed, have to have a very, very flat concrete slab, or there's some costly concrete remediation that may be necessary. So that's a big driver for us. And then finally, building column spacing, having a good wide floor to work with not a lot of space intrusions from unnecessary building columns to put my automation in. That's what I look for.
Puma is a leading sports brand that designs, develops, and sells footwear, apparel, and accessories. For more than 65 years, the company has produced innovative products for the fastest athletes on the planet. This
about a
forever
year
faster
ago, year and a half
strategy
ago.
has been a key
And,
driver behind
this
Puma's
is an auto store
success
system.
and has now found its place in the company's supply chain.
We have a very large wholesale division, we have a retail division, and we have an e-commerce division.
Prior to the auto store, this facility only shipped the footwear for our e-commerce business. So we brought all of the different lines, apparel and accessories of footwear, put them into the auto store, and that services all of North America, including Canada.
The company was able to merge its fulfillment locations into a single facility, creating an omni-channel distribution center serving direct-to-consumer and direct-to-store shipments across North America. The Order Fulfillment Center, located in Torrance, California, is owned and operated by third-party logistics provider Brookvale, a California cartage company.
We, however, had some constraints in being able to ramp up for peak season, for sales, and obviously the holiday season.
From Black Friday on is our busiest time of year for all our channels of distribution. Essentially, we were 10 days to 12 days behind, and during that critical time, that hurts your business.
With the auto store, we wanted to increase our same-day performance. These day and ages with e-com, everybody wants it to ship the same day or the next day.
At the heart of the new material handling system is a state-of-the-art robotic goods-to-person system called AutoStore. Combined with an Exacta warehouse execution system, the Order Fulfillment Center handles about 200 e-commerce lines per hour per operator and 700 wholesale units per hour per operator. This is anywhere from 2 to 3 times more than Puma's previous operations, and with the increased efficiency, the system can easily ramp up to meet peak seasonal volumes.
You can see that that system really delivers the density. It also delivers the speed for the client. They had previously struggled with the omni-channel environment. One side of their business they could do a really good job on, so they would deliver to the retail while the e-commerce customers would grow increasingly upset that their orders weren't delivered in a timely fashion. So implementation of this technology allowed both retail and e-com to be effectively handled both now and with their projected growth rates well into the future.
Blake, thanks. Just a couple of questions before we move on. Who's your company's typical customer?
I like to think of us as Bastian's customer base as really we're industry agnostic. Everybody needs automation. Everybody benefits from automation. So the greatest concentration of customers employing automation that I see these days are those that are really trying to grow their e-commerce divisions, are those that are also dealing with the omni-channel challenges.
And then I know it's probably hard to generalize. I mean, all your systems are pretty much customized?
They are very custom tailored and designed to the client. We have some clients that come out to us for multiple fulfillment centers, and even with those clients, from one facility to another, the design can change considerably.
So it is hard to generalize, but what do you think about the program as a whole in terms of how it makes use of the existing space more efficient? I mean, are you able to quote a decrease in space demands going to this automated program?
Absolutely. Just to illustrate with the Puma facility, they originally had that operation housed in a bonded warehouse not far from their Torrance operation. So they were able to consolidate all that under one roof. So there's a substantial savings involved there.
Great. That was very interesting and fun to watch movies in the morning. Our final panelist is going to look at it from the Tenant's perspective. Chris Joyce is the Director of Operations for the Goodyear, Arizona Distribution Center, and he's with REI. So Chris, tell us what you've got going. Pretty interesting.
Thank you. Quick question, how many REI members do I have in the room? Wow. Excellent. So you're a little bit familiar with who we are. REI is a consumer cooperative, and that's allowed us to do things a little differently. We formed in 1938 when 23 mountain climbing friends couldn't find quality gear at an affordable price in the U.S. They wanted to be in the mountains. They couldn't afford to get out there and enjoy the mountains in a safe way. So they started importing ice axes from Austria, and Together, the group of 23 kicked in an extra $1 each and said, we're going to form a cooperative, and we're all going to share in the profits from that. And they sold off the extra ice axes they were able to purchase with that $1, and then they split the 10-cent profit. And from there, we've grown to 6.5 million members across the world. And we operate mostly domestically. We do ship internationally, but we don't have a retail presence internationally. But I'm here today to talk to you about our supply chain journey, because those 23 people started out just talking to their friends, and then it grew from there. It became a small storefront, actually in a gas station in Seattle. Then became a closet in downtown Seattle over the Green Apple Pie restaurant. And from there has grown into, we've got about 160 or so retail locations, as well as we've got 3 distribution centers, and we've got a booming online presence. We're actually one of the first companies to hop in on online because REI started as omni-channel. We pretty much started as a retail presence, getting product out to people. And from there, we had to figure out how do you scale that. And in 2005, we decided that our retail was being underserved on the East Coast by the one distribution center we had on the West Coast. It could take 14 days from when you sold out of something before a store on the East Coast would get that replenished. And so we said, let's take care of our retail presence. Now picture that, 2005. Online is growing. Everyone's claimed each year that that's the end of retail and nobody's going to order anywhere but from home again, and yet our retail continued to grow, and that was our focus. Fast forward to just a couple of years ago when we decided that we needed to get closer to our customers, because there's an expectation that if you place an order, it should be at your home within 2 days, right? Somebody out there setting an expectation that you should have things quickly. We want to remain relevant to our customers, so we're going to do that. And so what we did was we engaged with a couple of different firms to help us figure out where are our products coming from to our distribution center. So internationally and domestic to our suppliers, where do they ship from? Also, where are we shipping out to, and where would be the best place to locate a distribution center in order to serve that business? We did that on the East Coast when we opened our second distribution center out there. We found a circle about 300 miles in diameter and plunked a distribution center down in the middle of that. And that worked great for retail. Also took care of direct-to-consumer. Put almost all of our customers on the East Coast within about 2 days, round shipping, which is where you want to be. It's less expensive. But as you look to Texas and the Southwest, we were being underserved. So we decided this third distribution center would go in the Southwest to be closer to those customers to get us to about 83% of our online and retail customers would be within a 2-day drive. Great spot. What we also wanted to do, though, was something a little different, and that was be true to ourselves and really represent REI. And so we sat down with our developer that we had selected. We sat down with our material handling builder. We sat down with everybody for about 3 days and had a design charrette and said, here's some things we want to do. We want to create a highly sustainable facility. We want our people to really enjoy it. We want visitors to come in and see that this is REI as well and be aligned with our brand. We also wanted to implement some of the most technologically advanced distribution that we could and get some of the advantages that we just heard about from that. And so we sat down, and initially we were going to build a box on the edge of town, just like a lot of other warehouses, and instead we came out with this beautiful facility. We'll be showing a movie in a minute or so you get to see that. But we also said we want to build sustainably, so we achieved LEED Platinum with this building. It's 393,000 square feet. We are net zero on our energy. We have a 2.2 megawatt solar system on the roof that allows us to power everything below the roof with the cells that are on the roof. We also went with cold water, a chilled system for air conditioning. Since we already used the roof load for AC, we had to find another way. We didn't want to waste all the water pumping water into the air in Arizona. That's just miserable. And so we worked with the company to put in 4 cooling towers that just have radiant water that goes through here. We draw air across it. And in Arizona, at 120 degrees, we stay at 78 degrees plus or minus 5 degrees year round. And in fact, the true value of that was seen when we had our job fair. See the job fair on a 120 degree day. People walked into our warehouse, which is where we were holding it, and said, I'll take the job. We hadn't even interviewed or told them what it was yet. But they said, my warehouse that I'm currently working at does not feel this nice. So some definite advantage there. Size. We just talked about reduction in size. Our other facilities are 525,000 or about 700,000 square feet with a lot of mezzanine space in it. We're 393, and I have a mezzanine that's really only there to support about 12 people at those goods-to-person stations that come out of that picking system. The efficiency of it, in the other buildings, there'll be about 30 or so people walking up and down aisles pushing carts. We actually have an integrated omni-channel picking system that allows us to have one operator stand at a station and product comes to them, and they pick both for retail and for direct-to-consumer at the same time. So there's no travel associated with that. So instead of 30 people walking carts, I have 8 people both picking and packing my retail and direct-to-consumer at the same time. Incredible efficiency out of this. We went from a 6-day operation in our other facilities to a 5-day operation, reduced the size of the building, and we have a great workforce, but it's a smaller team than we have in our other facilities. And yes, you guys want to see it? All right, cool. I'm going to show you a video then.
REI was started in 1938 as a co-op. We live based on a mission and a purpose. We believe that a life outdoors is a life well lived. Everything that you see here in the warehouse is all about helping you experience the outdoors. When we brought the team of partners together, be it Merit, Butler, Renaissance, Canap, and DMW&H, we set some very clear design expectations. We said that we wanted to build the brand of REI into this facility. We said that we wanted to bring the culture of how we treat employees into this building. We said that we wanted to create the most sustainable building ever built, energy net neutral, LEED Platinum. We also said that we wanted to create a technology, system, and solution that no one had seen before. It's DMW&H and Canap working together that found that solution for this facility.
There's been a long history between REI and DMW&H, and the relationship that's been built over time has established some trust that we're able to challenge each other a little bit differently than we are entering into a brand new relationship and trying to figure out what is the right way to engage. That was really critical in our ability to deliver game-changing technology and challenge what would be a more traditional approach to building a distribution facility as compared to what we've done with this omni-channel distribution facility.
So we've had a relationship with DMW&H for over 10 years. Chris Castaldi, one of their team members, has been an amazing partner to really look at REI, listen to REI, understand what our objectives were, and then create solutions that allowed us to facilitate our mission, our purpose for our members.
REI and DMW&H have had a long relationship. When REI started talking about its third distribution center in the Southwest, Rick Bingle asked me to look at some ideas.
And he threw out what I thought was a standard approach. And I looked at Chris and I said, we can do better. Go out and search for better. And Chris did.
I ended up traveling around the world, including Europe, and found unique technologies that hadn't been done before in the United States. The key was the pocket sorter and marrying it with the shuttle OSR from Canap.
And sure enough, we built this building. The best of what DMW&H could create as an integrator and the best of what Canap could build from their OSR and pocket sorter.
One last point to make here, that integration, you heard partnership a lot, and it's not a sales video, but this partnership allowed us to get done with this project probably 6 months sooner than we would have if we had done what you traditionally do in a build-up, which is create the shell and then invite the material handling in to come integrate their parts into it. And instead, because they were tied in together, they started erecting the steel for the OSR and for the material handling in conjunction as we started to roof in the building, because the two had worked so well together to understand each other's needs. And that was driven by us saying, all partners, here's our goal, work with us together on this, and let's create something different in the industry.
That's great. Thanks, Chris. A couple of questions for you. It's a 2-story building. How much mezzanine or upper floor square footage is there?
There's not a lot in there. Most of the clearance in the building is to accommodate the OSR. We do go up to 45-foot clear in that space. But the work platform is really to serve the 8 people working up there doing the picking, as well as some audit stations. So the front office core this is a great office core. I love working there. We've got a gym in the bottom, great employee break spaces, so we really take care of the people working there. And then the upstairs is devoted to a community room to invite people in to use our space for free, as well as we've got the administrative core up there. So most of the T-level is given over to administration, and then the rest is production in the building.
It was interesting when you're mentioning your company's site selection process. Usually we hear about it, well, you know, we want to be near a port. It looks like REI decided that they put their facilities near their customers.
It was definitely the choice was customer focused because we see that's where the competitive advantage is right now. If you can promise a customer within 2 to 3 days that their product will be there, they're far more likely to shop with you rather than abandon that cart and move on. You want that good information coming to them. And as you probably know, it's also a little challenging to work in some spaces, and we thought that by pulling product from Long Beach over to Phoenix, Arizona, we had some great advantages. And they also invited us in with the FTV designation for that area. Allows us to expand our international shipping into that space.
The other thing that I was struck by is when I'm representing clients and the government wants, you know, like trails or bike paths through it, and you know, our clients are saying, hell no, we need to have a secure facility. Yet you allow the public into your facility.
We do, and that's been good learning for us. We don't operate as an FTZ anywhere else, and we have a heightened level of security there. But we feel at REI we trust our employees, and so we try not to make this very prohibitive entrance to the space for the employees. We do make sure that all of our guests are escorted, but we invest the time in that. Part of our goal for this facility was to make sure it was open source. We wanted other people to see you could build a sustainable business that made business sense and take care of customers and welcome the community because we're a co-op. Our members are our owners. We want them to be able to come and enjoy the experience as well.
But there's no point of sale, so it's not like when you go to Skechers out in Moreno Valley, you could actually, customers could just, you know, consumers could just go to the facility and buy stuff.
Correct. That is something we always think about is should we locate a retail location next to our distribution? And what we find is hasn't made sense yet, and because our customers don't tend to be where your distribution centers are. And if they do travel all that way, we want to give them great service, and we want to make sure that we would have knowledgeable salespeople on site to help them rather than just make it a pickup point or a locker. So while we're exploring locker options for folks to easily pick up an order, we wouldn't put a retail presence with our distribution at this time.
Great. Well, thanks, Chris. Let's have some interaction, if we can, here. I was going to ask Brandy a couple of questions. And, you know, given these requirements for fulfillment facilities, where do you see the highest demand concerning building size? Million square footers still hot?
Yeah, you know, the million-foot phenomena that we've been seeing, this cycle, has been unprecedented, I think, across America in almost every major SMSA. And although I don't think that pace can continue here in Southern California, I do think there's going to be a very strong demand for the next 2 cycles for the buildings between that 800 to 1 million square foot size because of the 3PL consolidations and some of the other demands of retailers as they finally figure out from the leaders in the fulfillment industry how to actually deal with this last mile.
What about locations? You know, everyone's complaining there's no land, but yet I don't think there's really been a lot of new development when you get further out, you know, say Banning, you know, Hesperia, and even further out to Victorville. What are you seeing in that respect?
Well, you mentioned the whole vehicle miles traveled initiative here, where actually we're going to get taxed for the miles traveled with our trucks, which really then reverses the trend from the fringe cities to the core. And as we see densification of residential being the push of most cities, and the environmental initiatives encourage that densification of residential, we're going to see more and more warehouse coming into the infill, and that will be in that 100 to 300,000.
And that leads us finally to the last topic about how difficult it is to get entitlement. I mean, that's a big problem in California. Cities are loath to give up retail given the way municipal finance works, to shift from a retail use which cities love and going to a warehouse, which is so awful. Have you had any experience or have you seen that anywhere that's been gone through where we've gotten a change?
Yeah, I'd say this entitlement process is every quarter moving to a more difficult state, and I don't see anything in the horizon that would make it change. Unfortunately, a lot of the ideas that sit behind some of the logic may have been well conceived. I think the execution is very poor, and the unintended consequences are severe. We really, as consumers, are looking to, and very desperately, trying to find ways to make more efficient the supply chain and keep that cost down of that, just getting it to my home at the cheapest price. But if we're going to be taxed and put through the processes as we are, with supply being constrained by zoning, which will not change, rents are going to be forced to rise as they are now as of land value. We will see this trend continue through the cycle because of the demand that cannot be met. And as a result, we're going to see, I think, the cost of delivering these goods actually increasing, unfortunately. But, it's the cost of urbanization.
Right. This is a question, I guess, for both Blake and Chris. When we are processing projects with clients, a lot of the complaints are usually, number one, these facilities don't generate any jobs. Or, well, yeah, they generate jobs, but they're all low-paying jobs. Can you tell us about your experiences in terms of, compared to, like your typical warehouse model in terms of how does the employee number, how's the differences in employee numbers and wages? Who is actually working in these facilities? Are they hired trained people? How about you first, Blake?
Absolutely. With automation, there's a big driver for highly skilled jobs to be able to interface, maintain the automation. I mentioned earlier there's also a software component to a lot of these systems that drives a lot of specialized IT skill sets. So while there may be an overall net reduction in jobs at some of these newer fulfillment centers, the jobs themselves are higher paying in nature. We often hear about the disappearance of the middle class, how the middle class is going away, but these facilities themselves are driving more of these middle class jobs into the market.
How about you, Chris? How does your workforce compare, say, in your Goodyear location versus your less automated warehouses in other parts of the country?
The fun thing about what we've done is it's not all the way to completely automated, and so we still have about 240 employees working across 3 shifts in the building, so 240 total. And so we've got a competitive wage for a warehouse job. We've got the REI experience to go along with that, which love it. And then you've got this idea that the job skill set required for this automation is much higher. In our other facilities, our mechanics, they're great at addressing motors. They're great at working through typical conveyance. My current mechanic crew needs to have PLC knowledge. They need to be great electrical engineers almost, and their skill set is much higher than in our other facilities. My IT folks used to be just sort of on the configure side of the systems that run the warehouse management. The ones I have now are actually troubleshooting through multiple systems, including the different material handling systems as well as the warehouse management systems, and becoming experts in this technology. And so I would absolutely agree with Blake that we're seeing higher skill levels in the automated related jobs, as well as there's still a need for people to move product around these warehouses, and we just try to provide a competitive work experience for them.
How about from a zoning or entitlement perspective? It sounds as though that you guys need, 45 feet at most, clear, 45-foot high building?
So we went tall just because of the system we went with, but it allowed us to also go very tall with our reserve racking and shrank the overall footprint of the building.
How about you, Blake? What 45 feet, is that enough?
Usually, if we could get at least our 36 clear, that's going to optimize the footprint we have to work with vertically.
So that's good from a zoning standpoint, because then we're not talking about really tall buildings. I guess in terms of floor area ratio, basically maybe using these kind of automated solutions would lead to a lower floor area ratio. So that means smaller buildings on a larger piece of land, perhaps. And parking requirements, the number of spaces probably less than what you normally would require.
Absolutely, yeah. Some of the facilities we've seen some very substantial savings. We automated a facility for a client in Moreno Valley. Previously, they would have anywhere from 500 to 700 associates at the operation, so parking was a big deal. It was a real challenge. With the automation, the efficiencies they achieved, That same operation now, substantially higher throughput at that warehouse. They have about 150 to 160 associates.
I think this is all really kind of illustrative of when you're going through an entitlement process, you're really dealing in the abstract because, every building is essentially a one-off. And so there isn't, but yet when you're going through an entitlement process, there's a presumption that, well, this is like a high cube warehouse and it's going to be, generate this many trips and, this many employees and this many parking spaces. But in reality, it's going to be really hard to to come up with an entitlement process that's really accurate, because you don't know what the end user is going to do. So that's really very interesting stuff. I think we've got some questions. Go ahead, yeah.
Just another factor to consider here is that as the shift goes more towards fulfillment rather than traditional retail warehousing, your trucks actually are getting denser with smaller packages in them, and so you're actually probably reducing your road traffic is what we've seen. I don't have as many large truckloads heading to a retail store every day, but I've got a lot of small packages heading to consumer homes, densely packed in these small parcel carriers.
Right. Yeah, and then this same thing carries over into like traffic rates, and there's a big struggle these days, and cities want e-commerce, but what is e-commerce? So it is pretty interesting. Well, we've got a bunch of questions here from the audience. Hopefully, I can read the writing. Southern California is a spec building market for e-commerce. This has almost been answered, maybe, but we can you guys can elucidate. For e-commerce, is 40-foot clear the ideal building height?
I think we found 40 to 43 is really more magic for for some users that wanted to the 3 mezzanines inside the shell. But we're seeing this plane being invented as we fly it, and I think even the leaders in this business have massive change orders going on during the construction process as they continue to figure out how to make it better during that 9-month period of construction. So, 5 or 7 years from now, we'll still be writing the book on what the specs should be for these buildings. We just can't miss it. And I think taller maybe actually take it.
We get a lot more flexibility. Yes, right. This is probably for Blake and Chris. How much per square foot or cubic foot does one of the automated systems cost?
It's very, I'll go first. It's very difficult to throw a number on that. It really depends on the client. Some of the software that goes into these can be very intricate and can really add to the cost. The goods-to-person technologies that I showed, they typically have $1 million starting point price tag, but the range of customization required can really affect the price point substantially. So it's hard to throw an exact number on it.
Yeah, I thought. How about this one, Blake? What is the estimated return on investment for an auto store?
Excellent question. Depending upon the customer's previous state, whether or not they had employed automation, the level of efficiency that they had prior to, we've seen paybacks typically inside 2 to 3 years is what we see for a return on investment.
Wow, that's compelling.
Wow. How about this one? This is a topic we didn't really cover. How do you guys see driverless cars affecting the supply chain?
Well, we just had a debate at this at dinner the other night with one of the managers of one of the big brokerage houses, and it is staggering when you think about what really could happen with the driverless cars. I'm not talking trucks, I'm talking cars. Are we actually increasing traffic or decreasing traffic? And if you think of this, the road systems actually having somebody having to come pick me up and then take me home, I just had that car sitting in the parking lot and I'll take myself home. You actually are going to have a radical increase in traffic, I think, with these self-driving cars. That's just my early take on it, but I'm sure there'll be other thoughts about this. But from a truck standpoint, I think it's extremely efficient.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing. I think we had some guys come to our office and they had indicated that you could put the facilities further out because if you have driverless trucks, there's no requirements about how many hours a day you can drive, et cetera, et
the
cetera.
air quality will taxes on that one. Yeah. I just think it's going to be in the building.
Taxes everywhere.
Yeah,
try to suck up that consumer surplus wherever you can. This is for Blake and Chris. Do you guys prefer to lease or own your facilities? I guess more for Chris.
As a co-op, we have conservative growth and we own all of our distribution centers. We do lease some of our retail stores, but we do like to make long-term investment in our space. When we arrive in a community, we commit to that community that we're going to be there and do business with them for a long time. So we go within the ownership model. Each time we have explored the lease option, but it just hasn't made sense for us because we don't think we're just going to move them or leave. We decided that's where we want to operate from, and so we buy on that. Retail stores, though, as you watch retail change, you definitely want to have that flexibility of being able to get out of a lease if needed.
Blake, how about you? I mean, it seems like it might be somewhat difficult for a tenant to want to invest all this money in a certain facility. It pretty much ties them down for quite a number of years, I imagine.
It does. It's also very costly to relocate one of these systems. It's a lot easier said than done. It can also disrupt their operations. So in the interim, it almost makes more sense to build an entirely new automated system than deal with the disruption. So more often what we see, if the tenant's not owning the property, it's a very long-term lease, typically a minimum of 10 years.
Here's a good question for Brandy. How high must industrial land prices get to support multi-story distribution facilities?
Wow. Well, let me reverse that. Rent. What does rent have to be? Because there's lots of factors, right? There's the cost of the building. We're still designing, what's most efficient in that whole genre. But I think rents need to be $1.25 triple net-ish, plus or minus 10 cents, in order to make these buildings pencil. And that's at a 5.5 return. I'd say that question though is much better suited for Prologis, who I think has done a brilliant job of really analyzing the cost and value in this economic equation. But that's our take on it.
Blake, I think we probably know the answer, but it's still a good question. Is the demand for automated system mostly found in larger buildings as opposed to smaller buildings? And what's, say, the smallest building you've designed a system for?
No, we've put highly automated systems in some small, very small facilities, less than 100,000 square feet. So the need for automation is there. I don't think we're really just putting our blinders on and looking exclusively at larger footprints. Some of these customers need to grow into automation. Maybe they're fairly new to e-commerce. A very small facility might make sense, but with some of these technologies, we can still keep them in a small facility and make room for that added growth with automation and further e-commerce.
Do you lease the systems to your customers, or do you?
We have both options.
I really like to visit that facility in Salt Lake, which is one of our suppliers. Pretty small in their distribution, and yet they went with an automated system, and they were surprised at how much they were able to lean into it, how much value they got out of it, and it's a beautiful system. I went there a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that system, the client had, they used to spend about an entire day through their order fulfillment process in a very conventional base design. Operators had a lot of traveling to do to get to the goods the customers were ordering. Now with that technology, that customer is able to finish all their picking operations in about a half day. So it leaves the rest of the day for other processes that they can use, replenishment of the system, for example.
That's a good question for Chris. Will your bricks and mortar store be downsized because of internet sales, and how will this affect your warehouse capacity, if at all?
I think that anytime we make that choice, ours has been very, very slow to close down locations, but we have closed some of our retail locations. There are years where business is good and we put in 8 new retail stores. There's other years where we scale that back and we do 1 or 2, or we do 1 large project. We still feel like the REI retail location is a fun place to go to. We still see that as competitive advantage. You get that experience, the ability to interact with someone. And so while we may slow on retail growth, there's still a need for that presence and that option for a customer. Part of the growing trend in supply chain too is to use those as mini fulfillment centers. And so as you get closer to customer, we've launched over the last 4 years initiatives to show our store inventory online to our customers, have the option for them to order against that with the next phase. And now we're moving on to that place where hopefully later this year you'll be able to place that order online, swing by on the way home, and just pick it up from the desk same day. And so That allows you to actually push from your fulfillment or warehouse centers out to retail and treat them like mini warehouses regionally, and gives you actually more presence and the ability to fulfill others faster.
Well, we appreciate everyone's time. We got one last question, and of course it's a real easy one for Brandy, I think. What economic event or events will lead to this real estate cycle turning?
I actually think it'll be a black swan. I don't think the Federal Reserve policies that are anticipated in the next 12 to 18 months are going to have a chilling effect upon the economy, let alone our sector, mainly because of the demand for the investment globally coming to the United States due to transparency, transparent legal system, data availability, and underwriting. But I do think that it's an event that has been there all my life. I mean, we've always had a bear out there somewhere that was going to, be a bad day, and the scenarios were always ugly, and that still exists. And I just don't see anything. And by the way, this isn't my opinion solely. I just came back from the IREI conference, the institutional investor real estate conference, and across the board, I think the only concern was, boy, we've been long in the tooth in this cycle. Well, that's a rearview mirror perspective. That's not any statistical indice for me. I mean, there's some 60 indicators that one would want to watch to see if the economy is going to go into a stall. And there just isn't any support of that, although the land prices and rent growth assumptions are quite chilling and sobering. But when you look at the supply side of it and the demand that's pushing it, I think we can have courage in it. So I think we're in for a really good cycle, good 3 years, and another good second cycle.
Let's hope a developer comes out with that, right? I mean,
That's a developer. That's the optimism.
If the developer can't be optimistic, who can?
So divide by two.
Yes. Well, thank you all for attending, and thank you, speakers, and thank you, Cynthia and Naop, for setting this up.
Good job.